There was once a farm animal, gentle enough for a child to lead on a rope, small enough to keep 3 on a single acre, that sold for the price of a suburban house. Not prize cattle, a soft, humming, doe-eyed creature you could keep in a backyard paddock. At the peak, one male changed hands at auction for $675,000. Breeding females routinely brought $20,000 and $30,000 each. People took second mortgages to buy a pair. Retirement plans were built on a barn full of them. That animal is an alpaca, and today, you can find them listed online for as little as $1. This is one of the cleanest speculative bubbles in farming history. And the strange part is, nobody hit it. Economists documented the whole thing while it inflated. Most people blame the 2008 crisis for popping it. That crisis was barely involved. The collapse was written into the business on day one, hidden inside an import rule and a pile of fleece nobody actually needed. Let's open the books. Start with the animal, because on this ranch, the animal was the entire investment. And that was the whole problem. Alpacas came to North America in the mid-1980s, from the high plains of Peru and Bolivia. Then the border effectively closed. Importing more from South America was shut down. So the only breeding animals here were the ones already present, their descendants, a closed herd, a fixed supply that could only grow as fast as the animals bred. Hold on to that. A fixed supply, plus a rising crowd of buyers, is the recipe for every mania in history. Land is the easy part. Alpacas are small, efficient grazers, 5 to 10 to an acre behind simple fencing with a 3-sided shelter. What cost money was the animals. At the height of the market, a pet quality male ran a few $100s. A breeding female ran $20,000 to $50,000, and a proven champion herd sire, a male with a winning show record, sold in the hundreds of thousands. The all-time record, set in 2010, was a male named Snowmass Matrix, sold at auction for $675,000. So a starter herd of a few good females was not a few $1,000s. It was 6 figures. Before a barn, before hay, before a single haircut. You were not buying livestock. You were buying breeding stock. And the difference between those two words is the entire story. Buy the herd, and here is what actually comes with it. You inherit a fleece nobody had built a market for. An alpaca grows 5 to 8 pounds of fiber a year. Lovely stuff. Soft and warm. But raw fleece sells for very little, and North America had almost no way to turn it into yarn. Scale. Meanwhile, Peru, with over 3 million alpacas, already made world-class fiber cheaply, and the border stayed open to their fleece, even while closed to their animals. So the product was abundant and cheap. Only the animal was scarce. You inherit a slow printing press. A female produces 1 baby, a cria, per year, and even that is not guaranteed. Pregnancies are lost over winter. Go in with 10 expected and come out with 8. Your only way to multiply money was to breed and sell more animals. And they bred slowly. You inherit the tax story, because it was part of the pitch. Alpacas could be depreciated as livestock. Losses could offset other income, and seminars taught buyers how the write-offs made. The numbers work. When the tax angle is doing the selling, that is a warning, not a feature. That is what transfers. Now let's talk about what was supposed to come in. An alpaca ranch had ways to make money on paper. Here they are. And watch which one everything depended on. Number 1. Breeding stock sales. Selling the cria to the next buyer entering the business. In the boom years, this was the money, not the fiber. Just the animals, sold to new people who wanted to raise animals to sell to newer people. Number 2. Stud fees. If you owned a champion male, other breeders paid to use him. $1,000 to $5,000 per successful cria. A single elite herd sire could earn a serious yearly income, purely from other people trying to produce the next expensive animal. Number 3. The fiber, the actual product. 5 to 8 pounds a year, sold raw, or spun into yarn, or worked into scarves and socks. Done well, with processing and retail, a real business. Done as raw bulk fleece, it barely covers the feed bill. Number 4. Agritourism and the farm store. Farm visits, alpaca walks, a shop. The animals are photogenic and friendly, and this is a real income line for farms that lean into it. Number 5. Compost. Alpaca manure is an excellent, nearly odorless fertilizer you can bag and sell. Small but real. Now look at that list again. In the boom, layers 2 through 5 were rounding errors. Almost the entire value of an alpaca rested on layer 1, selling more alpacas. Hold on to that. Two agricultural economists at the University of California, Richard Sexton and Tina Saitone. They ran the numbers on what an alpaca actually produced, its fiber, against what a live alpaca cost to buy. Those prices did not add up. Not even close. They calculated that alpaca fiber revenue would have to grow about 20% a year for years on end, at a pace almost never seen for any farm product, just to justify the prices people were already paying for the animals. Listen to that again. Asset value had come completely unhooked from what the animal produced. That is the textbook definition of a bubble. When a price depends not on what a thing earns, but on what the next person will pay, you are not farming. You are holding a chair, hoping the music does not stop while you sit in it. The economists even named Vittel. The asset, the live animal, got marketed. The product, the fleece, was an afterthought. That is always the sign. Here is what it actually costs to keep an alpaca. Every year, whatever it is worth. Feed and hay, routine worming, and vaccinations. The once-a-year shearing every alpaca needs, whether or not the fleece sells. Add it up, and it runs roughly $600 to $850 per animal, per year. On a small herd, that is a real annual bill that never stops. Then the setup. Fencing the paddocks. A shelter or barn. Water. The animals themselves, which in the boom were the enormous line. 6 figures for a quality starter herd. Then, the vet surprises. Alpacas are hardy but hide illness well, and a sick one, a hard birth, or a parasite problem can mean an emergency bill, and sometimes a dead animal carried on your books at tens of thousands of dollars. And here is the brutal arithmetic Sexton stated plainly. Once the breeding boom is gone, an alpaca produces 5 to 8 pounds of fiber a year, worth less than what it costs to feed, medicate, and shelter it. Strip out the dream of selling breeding stock, and each animal quietly costs more to keep than it will ever earn. A herd of them, in that world, is not an asset. It is a monthly bill wearing a very soft coat. Here is the trap, the oldest one in speculation. You only win if someone behind you wants in. Every dollar of that 6-figure herd value depended on a continuous supply of new buyers, people willing to pay boom prices to start their own alpaca ranch, so they could raise animals to sell to the buyers after them. Fiber was never going to pay for those prices. It only worked if the crowd kept growing. And a closed pyramid like that has a mathematical ceiling. Eventually, you run out of new entrants. A population of people who will pay $30,000 for a backyard animal is not infinite. When the inflow of newcomers slows, the price of breeding stock stops rising. And the moment it stops rising, the only reason anyone was buying, the hope of selling higher later, evaporates. And then, everyone who is holding animals wants to sell at once into a market with no new buyers. That is not a risk. It is a certainty on a delay. Any market where the product cannot support the price, and the price depends on recruitment, is not asking whether it will collapse. It is asking when. This bubble is unusual because someone called it in print, in real time, with the math attached. In 2005, near the very top of the market, Sexton and Saitone published their first analysis. They did not say alpacas were bad animals. They said, in careful academic language, that the live animal prices were not supported by the fundamentals, and that the pattern matched previous agricultural manias. They pointed straight at the history. Ostriches in the 1980s, chinchillas, emus, which had famously crashed from thousands of dollars a bird to nearly nothing. Even centuries earlier, Dutch tulip bulbs. Every one followed the same script. A novel animal or plant. A closed or slow supply. A story that early buyers got rich. Prices driven by selling breeding stock to new entrants rather than by any product. Then the newcomers dry up, and it collapses inward. They laid out the warning signs so future farmers could spot the next one. In 2012, they published a follow-up. documenting the collapse they had predicted, right on schedule. It is one of the rare cases where economists said "we told you so," with receipts, on a bubble they flagged years before it burst. So, how did it actually end? Around 2008, the flow of new buyers slowed and then stopped. Yes, the financial crisis was in the background, but the deeper cause was simpler. The pyramid ran out of new people. Only so many buyers will pay boom prices for a backyard animal whose fleece cannot cover its feed. Breeding stock prices did not drift down. They fell off a cliff. Animals that had sold for tens of thousands became hard to give away. Craigslist filled with herd liquidations. Alpacas that once carried five-figure tags were listed for a few $100s, and some, at the bottom, for a single dollar, just to move them before the next hay bill came due. Thousands of breeders who had bought near the top, often with borrowed money, were left holding herds worth a tiny fraction of what they paid. Those animals still ate. Vet bills still came. But the resale value that was the entire investment thesis had vanished. Those alpacas did nothing wrong. They were exactly as advertised: soft, gentle, healthy. Value was never really in them. It was in the belief that someone else would always pay more. And that belief was the only thing that ever crashed. So who came through this? And some did, and still run good farms today. 4 habits separate them. 1. They built a real fiber and product business, not a breeding scheme. The survivors process their fleece into yarn and finished goods and sell it at retail margins. They treat the alpaca as a fiber animal, which is what it actually is, and they make the product pay. 2. They ran the farm as an experience. Farm tours, alpaca walks, a shop, school visits. Agritourism turns friendly, photogenic animals into steady income that has nothing to do with breeding stock speculation. 3. They never paid bubble prices in the first place. The farmers still standing mostly bought in cheap after the crash, or bred modestly, and never mortgaged the house to buy a champion. They treated the animals as livestock, not as lottery tickets. They understood which business they were in. Not the business of selling alpacas to the next dreamer, but the business of turning fiber and charm and manure into money from actual customers. And underneath all 4, the same clarity every one of these episodes keeps landing on. They knew that an animal is only worth what it produces, never what the next excited buyer hopes to flip. 4. Does an alpaca ranch actually work? Let's run it honestly. Done right today, at real prices, it can. Buy a small herd at sane livestock values. Keep annual cost per animal in that $600 to $850 range. Turn the fiber into yarn and finished goods. Run a farm store, offer tours, sell the compost. A well-run alpaca farm is a modest, real agritourism and fiber business, and the animals are a joy to be around. Many families do exactly this and are glad they did. Done the old way, as a breeding investment, it is a wealth incinerator. Anyone who bought a herd expecting the animals to appreciate, who counted the resale of cria as the return, was not running a farm. They were late to a game already diagnosed in writing by economists, with the collapse all but foretold. So here is the honest verdict. An alpaca is a wonderful fiber animal and a terrible investment vehicle. And the entire disaster came from confusing the two. Buy it for the fleece and the life, and it can pay its way. Buy it to sell to the next buyer, and you are just holding the chair when the music stops. That's the whole thing, and the animals never knew it was happening. You were never really buying a soft, gentle creature that hums. You were buying a link in a chain, and a link is only worth something as long as someone is trying to add the next one. The alpaca was never the asset. The next buyer was, and one day the next buyer did not come.